wouldn't get in. I mean, they really,
It's pretty fun.
1 minute warning.
there's no, my class, no women, one African American, one Asian American. Franklin Ing was a historian. Now it's a different world. They have race standards and
Staying cool.
so.
Are you staying cool?
Summer arrived. That sounds like it's college tour. Yeah. Summer is here.
Well, that was the goal. I still have season tickets to men's lacrosse.
Nice.
It's nutcase alumni.
Well, you should see my stuff in other aluminum.
7, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's good.
Are we good to go?
I can record.
Yeah, my wife is an English teacher.
Okay, 7 PM, I'd like to call this July 6, 2023, meeting of the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission to order. This being our first meeting of the month, it's our planning meeting, so I think we should just jump right into the Plan of Conservation and Development updates. Present tonight, we have John Guskowski. John, is Steve here tonight or no?
Yes,
Yep, he's here.
Steve Maddock is here.
Great.
Also online, we have Commissioner John Morgan. And our clerk Raquel is joining us.
Great. So this is our second hybrid, but we hope it will meeting of the year. We hope it'll be a pattern now with planning being a little more relaxed and easier to manage technically, logistically, and for all other reasons. Should we go ahead and get started with the POCD? John, are you
Sure.
there?
Yep, I'm here.
You want
Um,
to start, John? You want me to? Or you
no,
wanna-
you go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, so just to recap, we did provide an updated version of our working draft, and you all have a paper copy this evening to look at. And we did send out a digital copy as well. This incorporates much of the feedback we've received from commissioners who emailed in comments, as well as Conservation Commission and staff, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to read through it. If you have any comments, I don't think we had planned this evening to go through page by page what the changes were, but you can see the track changes on there and the updates.
So yeah, I would just note, I apologize for the formatting. It's Microsoft Word, which working with tables and text is sometimes a little goofy, and we then transpose the orientation of the page from portrait to landscape, and so I think we lost a little bit of formatting there. The one thing I would, so as Aaron said, we did incorporate a lot of the feedback that was provided to us, the markups and the suggestions, so we appreciate that. One thing we also added in the natural environment chapter is some of the background introductory stuff where we define some of what we're referring to about the natural environment, some background goals, some of the documents that were pivotal to understanding some of the natural environment stuff, meaning the current plan of conservation development, coastal resilience plan, stormwater management plan, natural resources inventory, and then we put a placeholder in there for some maps that need to get added, and then describe some of the existing boards and commissions that have some purview and influence over elements of the natural environment. And that sort of flowed into the policies and goals or the policies and actions that we had discussed last month. So it's very much a work in progress, but it's coming along. And again, we can, this was, as Aaron said, this was distributed, and happy to have feedback on that if people want to do markups or ask questions or add comments. That would be great. So I'll pause there if anyone wanted to jump in. I know we gave it to you a little bit late. I think it didn't go out until yesterday.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look at this latest version? Great.
I just skimmed it, to be honest.
Skimmed.
But
Skim.
I really need it.
Any questions, comments? criticism, complaints.
Is the whole document open to comment or just natural environment?
Should we just say, stay focused on natural environment?
I think it
No,
was the whole document that.
Yeah, we sent the whole working document. Yeah, so go ahead. What do we got?
Well, just one quick comment regarding Madison's population projection and the age distribution, which was the topic last time we talked about it. Number one, I like the clarification. It's better than it was.
What page are you on, John?
Page 11.
Okay, thank you.
And remember last time we talked about the general decline in the population, but the increase, particularly of young people under 19 years old. And just one thing I would add is that I did the numbers. The projection in 20 years for the under 19 population goes up by 725 people. So it supports what the document says. So if we wanted to add 725 as a number, that might make it a little more concrete and highlight the fact that the demographics are changing. And in fact, even though the general population is declining, the number of youngsters under 19 will be increasing by approximately 725 people.
Okay. Steve, are you catching that?
Sorry, I had my monitor set up backwards. John, where specifically did you want to add that 725 that you were mentioning above the chart there with the changes in projections as a bullet point, maybe in one of the bullets? The first bullet.
Sure. Page 11 says the largest and fastest growing age group in Madison will be the under 19 population, which is expected to increase from 22 to 20% of Madison's total population. This translates to approximately 725 more people in town, age 19 or under.
Okay, makes sense.
That works.
Makes it more real.
Okay. I'm having a little bit of an issue identifying that. Adding the comment, my Zoom controls are sitting on top of my toolbar. All right. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering then if we should do the same for the
That's what I was
others.
Yeah, we should just, I don't think we should just do one. If you're gonna do that, just make it consistent.
Which is great for comparison.
Sure, it's easy to do. We just take the
Okay.
percentages times the projection.
Yep. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you.
And I guess as we said at the last meeting, feel free to email. You can take this document and edit it, track your changes and just resave it with your initials at the end and send it along with any feedback as you're going through it. And that would be helpful. Because it's not, although we're moving on to start discussing the built environment, we haven't, finalized it, I guess, or adopted the first half here. So this is.
Right. In fact, Darren, I think
we're building it all together.
as we get into the built environment and continue along our way with the whole document, we'll have opportunity to go back and
Right.
tweak, update, change, re-emphasize certain things. depending on
Yeah, I mean,
how
we
that
haven't
fills
even-
in.
We haven't even looked at, any maps or,
Right,
anything like that as far as natural environment yet. So.
We'll find a lot of little things, like I also just looked at page 11, that the table on top, the population below 19, 25% is right. We need a different label, population above 45, it should be population 45 to 64.
Yes.
And there's this one, because
Because
otherwise, population above 45 is really 75%.
So narrow that,
Yeah.
define it better.
Yeah,
Yep,
define it.
that's good.
Yeah, it is the type of trivial, the point's still there, but it's.
Yeah, I think it's actually 40 to 64 is what we're.
Well, just,
Identifying.
Oh, yeah, down
just
below,
get it right.
the bullet
It says
point is
40.
40 to 64.
Oh, with the,
Where,
okay,
see the second
okay,
bullet,
yeah, okay.
And what happened
Yeah,
to
that needs to be-
the
and then over
20 to
65.
39?
Yeah, it's a
Although-
little, well, it doesn't
No, this
reflect
doesn't.
the
It's,
bullets.
yeah,
It's different. So I'm not sure, we're not comparing apples to apples here.
Yeah, exactly.
By looking at the bullets and the table.
This doesn't.
So it may not match perfectly here.
The way the charts read with some of the bullets in the other language got misaligned slightly when we switched it to landscape. So
Yeah.
we'll sort that out so it's a little clearer too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the chart below is better matched. Chart above.
right, yeah, and yeah, it's
The bullets.
Yeah,
And
formatting.
you're losing at the big numbers too, which is, yeah, I mean, it just said they're group, but.
Significant.
yeah, it's funny, the US percentages add up to 100%, which it shouldn't with these titles, but Madison doesn't, which is, anyway. We can fix it.
No, yeah, we'll clean that up.
And John, does this data align with the affordable housing plan?
I think we drew some of it from the affordable housing plan. This table, I think, is new.
Mhm.
It's new data, I think, right? Because the census wasn't out. I thought the census data, the more recent census data wasn't available during the affordable housing plan.
Yeah, I think we were using maybe American Community Survey numbers rather than 100% census numbers.
The same
Um,
trend though. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Right.
the same general information, just some different statistics.
Right. Okay, we'll get that tidied up.
Okay, so do you want to kind of walk through what we consider the built environment a little bit and?
Sure. So again, so this is
mindset?
drawing from Carol's sort of elegant dichotomy of built environment and natural environment. For natural environment, we included all sorts of environmental sustainability, resilience, open space, things like that. For the built environment, this is sort of the other half of elements that humans are bringing to the table, which includes housing, economic development activities such as commercial development, our physical transportation network, roads, sidewalks, transit, municipal facilities, which include our schools, the town hall, town facilities, public works, garage, public parks and community centers, as well as our emergency systems, and then the zoning regulations, which in theory is meant to guide and control these elements. And so all of those together, we're considering part of the built environment and contributing to our goals and aims along that line. So we distributed this, I think, a while ago, at least 3 weeks ago, I think, where we were kind of looking for, in the same way we had a conversation about the natural environment, to take a look at significant events relative to the built environment concerns, our goals and our hopes, and some of those things, just to kind of begin to kind of talk about this, how we feel, what our hopes are, what our concerns are for the human element of Madison, excuse me. So I will start, if Madam Chair, if you want to sort of manage the input, but we want to start with sort of the big picture things that are sort of important and trends over the last decade or so since the last plan.
Thanks. Yeah. I was wondering, John, if we should add something about infrastructure and the categories that you have there.
Roads, sidewalks.
Yeah, we We should. Yes, I think, and I thought, oh boy. Yes, we should.
How does that differ from roads, sidewalks, transportation?
Yeah, I'm thinking of things like water and sewer.
Sure,
Utilities.
Utilities underground, more sort of underground maybe.
sure, that makes sense.
I think that things like bridges would be covered by roads and transportation.
Yeah, some of the other infrastructure, public water, public sewer, data lines, power, telecommunications, those elements that are involved in connectivity, but are not, roads per se.
Right, yeah, even internet.
Mhm, absolutely.
access. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's good. I certainly had intended to put that in there, but yeah, absolutely.
thanks. Any other thoughts? I like that it's kind of open and neutral, and so we can put it out there and see what the responses are. Erin, do you have the stakeholder list available?
Now I had some, I can tell you.
Share so far where we are.
I was actually hoping to get feedback from the commission as far as,
Sure, yeah.
some of these. But, we've got Economic Development Commission, Chamber of Commerce, WPCA, so that's EDC, WPCA, developers, general residents. I mean, this is, we can talk, we have a facilities committee, we have an affordable housing committee. It would be helpful to hear from Public Works.
I also asked for historic preservation and like the Historic District Commission.
Yes,
Historical
HDC, yeah,
Society.
and the society, I agree. Now that I'm on the spot, I'm gonna forget them.
I'll remind you.
Beach and Rec can also come into
Yeah.
this with, senior services, our facilities director, this kind of runs the gamut across multiple agencies, really.
I would add communities of faith also.
Sure.
to get
Sure.
some input.
Yeah,
Schools or Board of Ed.
yeah, Board of Ed.
So we've done, and some of the outreach, just even from employees, we did tie in some questions into the strategic planning process, their survey, the visioning session that was held that gathered some information that's relevant, I think, to the POCD process. In some cases, more so than the strategic plan process. So I do think, although it may not be in the form of this worksheet, we will get quite a bit of feedback as that information is uploaded into our shared drive as well.
Yeah.
And business owners, when you talk about downtown or infrastructure or things any limiting factors for development or affordability, there's we really can have. I also think there are some environmental groups who would be interested in speaking to some of these topics as
Absolutely.
well. So there
It
will
should
be,
be
we're going to see this
conversation.
crossover
Yep,
between all of them.
great.
They're related.
Yeah.
They're
This is where you
interrelated.
start to see that, they're
Yeah.
not standalone columns, which is,
Yeah.
this is where it's going to get interesting to watch how we do weave this together, the natural and the built, and continue these themes throughout both, because they are very broad.
So how soon can we get these out?
Oh, I mean, this information is shared, so I think, whether we get it back,
Right?
isn't, I never received an actual completed worksheet from anyone with the natural
natural.
environment, but we did get some good information nonetheless. So I'll continue to encourage, but I thought even, and it is a little challenging this week, I think, with some folks being out of town for a long holiday week, taking advantage of that.
Mhm.
But just even to hear from the commission, just off of, off the top of your head, what are things that kind of stand out in your minds over the last 10 years? Can you think of big events or something you would consider a loss in that case?
And if you want, I mean, if we want to narrow this a little bit, we can talk about some of these categories individually. So if you think about, some of the roads and sidewalks and bridges and things like that, how has the town been doing? Are there areas of progress? Are there areas of need? And then we can kind of solicit that about, infrastructure, emergency facilities, schools as well. But if it helps to talk a little bit more topically, one by one, that would be fine.
Sure, that makes better sense, actually.
Makes good sense.
We'll be all over the place. Do you have a preference, Carol, where we start?
No, we could go right down the list, I think. Shortages in affordable housing is a big standout for housing. From the last decade.
You think it's increased?
Has it increased much, Erin? It's like tenths of a percentage point, I think.
You mean the availability of affordable housing? Not significantly, no. I think the demand for housing has increased.
Yeah, how about just the shortage of housing?
Right, and that's not
Period.
necessarily,
Good point.
Affordable and non-affordable.
yeah, I think that crosses affordable and market rate. The need for rentals, I mean, we did quite a bit of work when we created the affordable housing plan, and I would think that's a significant event that we did, because the town never had an affordable housing
Yeah, the plan is a victory.
until that was adopted last year, and now the town has adopted an affordable housing committee, a permanent committee. So that's a big step.
Implementation.
I think the increase in 830G applications has brought
What type of applications?
The 830G.
830G, which is the
Oh.
affordable housing appeals process, although it's been around since 1990, that's you're seeing more of these, and I think that has come to light to residents that where it may not have been as
Raised awareness.
yeah,
Yeah.
and understanding what the implications of that is.
Public transportation has certainly improved in the last 10 years.
In what way?
Well, I shouldn't, I'm a newbie, so I shouldn't speak more than, I see these things going over by the shopping center where all
So
the
the
buses
buses.
stop
Buses, yeah.
and go from town to town, the ones that I believe go to 7 or 9 towns on the shoreline.
That's the estuary transit
Yeah.
district, yep.
That's, I believe, within the 10-year period.
They
That
have
that's
increased, you're right,
increased.
and continue to try to increase services, I agree. And to create an on-demand service as well.
I think Shoreline East though has had its ups
Shoreline
and
East
downs.
is not, does not seem to have improved in the last,
What was that?
services we
The
do.
Shoreline East train system.
Oh, yeah.
It's an issue of
Right, so
subsidies.
funding has
reduced
been,
from the state.
yeah, funding has been reduced.
And I think
Further get to the cycle of ridership becomes less because there's less service, and then you
Right.
subsidize more, so
You
then
lose
you do service
ridership.
more, and
Although there is work underway to build the north platform at the train station. So that's been talked about forever, that we're the remaining town on the shoreline east that does not have a
Both
stop in
sides
both
covered.
directions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that is something that DOT is working on currently. They're in the design phase, actually.
Aaron, how much of the housing downtown, not too far from the rail station, has been built in the past 10 years? For example, behind Elizabeth's Cafe, is that within the last decade or is that older?
I think that's older.
Older, I would
So-
think. But there has been an increase.
The Muse, that is older
That's
than
older.
10
So that's
years.
just the Bradley, that's new?
Bradley.
The Bradley is new.
Bradley's
Mhm,
new.
Over the last 2 years.
General's residence is new.
That's not true.
So there's been an increase which was recommended by the 2013 POCD, so. Right?
There are, I don't know that it's a significant number. We have a number of approvals that haven't yet been built. But there is growth in the transit-oriented district, as you would say, within a mile of the train station. And the limitations are septic, really.
Yep,
Yep.
it's a problem.
Which all our shoreline towns
It's a
struggle.
real problem.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, what's the current? Are there any discussions about finding opportunities for community systems or small package treatment systems to facilitate something like that, or is that sort of off the table still?
Well, so WPCA is working on their wastewater study, facility study that's required. And there was talk in the Bradley Road Vision Study to do a downtown feasibility study, I guess, or an assessment of what that would look like to have some type of small sewage treatment plant. And one economic viability, what does that look like from an economic standpoint? Who are you assessing the fees for that to? Is it just to those using it, or is it townwide? What is the cost to maintain that? And then what would be the expectation or the ability to build out in the downtown area to accommodate that increase in septic?
So is that a study that? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, John. I was just wondering if we haven't seen any of the studies or plans or proposals. Are there some that would be available?
There are no proposals for you mean for
For a
like
sewage
DEP
treatment
system? No, there
system.
aren't. Nobody has designed it.
The people who are talking about this, do they have a report that's coming due and will it be available soon?
The
or-
WPCA, my understanding is that they're targeting specific areas as required by DEEP, I believe, as far as septic capability, I guess, of the areas. And those targeted areas are really coastal areas.
Isn't there a
They've
fed-
identified specific coastal areas. It's not focused on the downtown. That's a separate study that would have to occur.
So downtown is
Oh,
not.
so the
Okay.
WPCA, I'm guessing, is probably dealing with how to address existing or potential problem areas rather than how to plan for economic growth or community growth. Which is unfortunately usually the way that goes, is that the DEP has lots of money to address problems, but no money to plan.
So sort of reactionary instead of.
And the town had earmarked money for a study that I thought that the health director and the economic development coordinator were working on. Although we've had or will be having some change in staffing, so I'm not sure where that's. I'll have to, I can follow up on that. But
Isn't there a
there
federal
isn't-
mandate as well that we're gonna have to adhere to in the next decade?
No, they're not. I think the mandate is to update the plan from DEEP. But I don't know what's coming out of that plan, what the recommendations would be.
Yeah, and if Madison's is anything like Clinton's, which I would assume it's fairly similar. They, Clinton was basically ordered and then was given funding to address, areas of current and sort of immediately future concern to basically fix the problem rather than, talking about let's blue sky this, what's a build out, where do we want to go, and how do we find solutions for the future, for future growth.
Yeah, that's really an
It's a
economic.
very different focus.
Shouldn't that be a goal?
Yeah.
It was a goal of the last plan.
Yes.
To understand, and that's gonna, that kind of looks at how tall do you want buildings to be? What kind of parking requirements do you have? What impacts on traffic in the blocks that we have?
Multi-use.
The goal of, or this idea of the study came about with the Bradley Road Vision Study. And the Bradley Road Vision Study was created basically to eliminate the super block of Boston Post Road, 79, Bradley and Wall, and to utilize Brookside Lane and infill around the pond.
It's from 2005.
And that plan has not been followed. So now you have to look at this and say, is there still viability to that idea?
I mean, it included multi-story car parks and
Oh, right.
it's a very different kind of
It was different,
scale.
but decisions have been made that have eliminated some of the options to do that.
Right.
So,
So maybe an opportunity to kind of revisit the goals of that and some of the recommendations.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that is important.
We'll talk a little bit while we're in that area. We'll talk a little bit about economic growth, and obviously the downtown and sort of the vitality of that area is obviously a point of pride. But is this, are there concerns that it's at a tipping point or struggling with redevelopment, or are there traffic issues that are creating issues in the center? Concerns about development, like the general's residence and the ledges,
There are complaints about those kind of developments, but more to do with density and aesthetics, I would say. But Aaron, I think we all hear about the limitations of not having a sewage system, and restaurants are struggling and.
Right.
It depends on the location, there are some areas that have good sand and, there are other areas like the train station that is literally built on
Wetlands.
where,
Yeah.
your pod, I think your lights, you can't target those areas necessarily for redevelopment with septic systems. So there are limitations in that sense. There's some parking limitations, I think, with on-street and municipal parking opportunities. There's an Amtrak lot where the old train station
Yep.
used to be, and the town used to lease that as town parking, and that lease has expired. And so that would be something I would recommend revisiting to see if the town could make improvements to that parking area and increase our downtown parking.
Where is that area, Aaron?
It's
It's
around
on
the corner,
Bradley,
yeah.
Bradley to Wall
East of
Street,
Wall.
so sort of next to Jaime.
Oh, I know,
West of-
okay.
along
okay,
that
okay.
tracks.
Where people
Back
Yeah,
parking.
I get it.
Right now, the CrossFit gym uses it for exercising, and and I think some
It's never
residents
been
down
a
there park.
popular place to park. It's never been heavily used, even regardless of the fact it was open. It was too far away from the stores. People didn't want to park that far away. And it was always a,
Yeah, I mean, I get, it depends on what kind of redevelopment,
Right.
in
but I mean,
areas
that's,
for.
but I don't see, people going to CrossFit or Jaime will park there, but Bradley and Wall, even people won't park there.
The employees park there
Yeah. But
to leave their parking
Customers,
lots
yeah.
open.
And we have sidewalks everywhere from there, right?
Yep, increasing, I think, sidewalk network in the downtown has been a goal, and the town has
Yes.
That has been a victory, I think, you know, the Madison Center project has been a victory over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, it's not completed, but we're still working on that and received a significant amount of funding this year from the state to complete that project. To Route 79.
You said earlier that there hadn't been any septic plans for the downtown. There were plans for the super block. And there was a fair amount of money invested, maybe 15 years or 20 years ago on the super block.
That was the Bradley Road Vision Study, is that what you're?
No, it was before the Bradley Revision Study, pre that. I don't know where it went to.
I don't know. There was talk of a few locations of possibilities. One was the Academy Field. One I thought was the train station, and one
Scotland
was J.C. Field, which I think J.C. Field is the likely location.
Yeah, it was
If that's
put the
all
super
sand,
block
but-
in, but also used under the roads. It's also under the road itself.
Yeah,
Capabilities.
I don't have any of that. I don't know who.
No, it's old. I mean, it's.
Who did that?
I haven't
Yeah.
either. It's been a long time since it was.
It's definitely
But
been
there
an
was a fair
idea
amount of
that's,
money put into that, to looking at trying to get the super block, putting some kind of a septic system into the super block, doing both, not only in the J.C. Field or you're right, the Academy Street Field was looked at too, but that was thrown out pretty early.
yeah,
You know, but you can also, there's also capability, you can put it under a road today, which is, that works, that's a mechanical.
well, and the town owns Scranton Park, which is south of the shops on the south side of Boston Post Road, and I think that's one of the things that needs to be identified is where are the problems with the septic systems and.
I mean, you could literally put it under
Could
Bradley
be.
Road, you could put it under Academy Road, under the roadbed itself. You don't have to put it on, you don't no longer have to put it on, you can put it under Academy, blacktop today. They
Yes,
And they work.
provided it works with drainage and.
Oh, yeah,
other
I mean, everything else. I mean, I
utilities.
think
Right,
that-
right,
I mean, it wasn't that many years ago where you couldn't do that.
right, yeah, you're right. Yep, and we see them under parking lots and.
So you're seeing them underground today, and, well, the Stop and Shop has one. Beach
And that's
Club
a
has it.
DEP system, that Stop and Shop.
Hmm?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stop and Shop.
So
has
they
a
did their
DEP
own under
system.
their parking
Yeah,
lot?
they have a big
Oh,
septic
interesting.
system under the parking lot.
Yeah, they
Beach
have
Club
the
has a
sewage
big
treatment
septic
plant.
system under its parking lot.
The Beach Club?
It's all
I didn't
under
know
the-
that.
It's all under the parking lot.
That's not a DEP system.
Hmm?
The Beach
The
Club.
Beach Club is not a DEP system,
No.
but
But they
the
did it.
Stop and Shop is because of the side.
Interesting.
But that's something at least to look at. And another, I guess, a significant event that for the downtown area is the fact that the town went to referendum and approved the conversion of the Academy School into a community center. Creating that bookend really of cultural kind of end where you have the library now at one end of the Boston Post Road downtown and the Academy Community Center on the west end, which is the gateway into the historic district there.
And adding to that victory would be the library renovation.
Yes.
That did happen in the last 10 years as
Yeah.
well. The library, the completion of the library.
What about the beginning of underground utilities, burying utilities? That's been in the last 10 years.
Well, that's part of the Madison Center project, the removal of the above ground poles.
That's still,
That's ongoing, yeah.
that's.
Yep, so those poles are set to be removed this summer.
Oh, are they really?
Mhm. Yep, the utilities have been, the cable, I believe, is completed as of last week and the Eversource is finishing.
Because it looks like
Over the
Frontier's
next
running some
few.
new cables down and using them. And I was surprised to see Frontier running fiber
Not
optics.
on the post road, no, those cables, those poles are coming down.
That's only been 20 years.
Don't want to rush it.
Yeah, I guess the concerns are finishing projects.
Right?
Through,
How is are there any concerns about areas in town particularly sensitive to power outages or areas that are sort of data dead zones, broadband infrastructure are,
The
you know,
Surf Club. The Surf Club has no cell phone
Service.
service at all.
Actually, AT&T is there today, putting up a temporary tower.
For the
I think
fireworks.
Yeah, for the fireworks. I mean,
Because
I
of
hope they're paying the
emergency.
town a lot of money for that. And I hope we're getting some revenue for that.
Well,
So
it's
that-
it's
Right,
dangerous. I
absolutely.
mean, I was there for, you have no cell coverage. You can't
Right, if there's an
You can't
emergency.
communicate with anyone when you're there.
There was a hill that was defined or described earlier, again, many years ago, that they were gonna put a tower on, but for some reason it got shot down.
Don't
That would
know.
give Surf Club, because you also have a number of areas on Middle Beach Primary that are dead zones.
Yep, I live in one on Green Hill Road. That
Charlie,
has
your
no
house
cell
is on the
coverage.
hill, can we-
So that is, there are areas in town that don't have
They've wanted our help.
cell coverage.
Be a very profitable venture.
But you're right, Aaron, that's dangerous.
Yes,
Is what?
it is dangerous to have these gaps, and especially in
Well, it
places
is,
where
and
they're
in an
playing
aging
fields and-
demographic,
Yeah.
how do you, what can
Yeah.
you rely on for emergency services to be able
Well, for
to
a while,
call
yeah, they
if
were
you
able
have
to
no
pick it up
power?
from Long Island, but apparently Long Island has changed their services, so you no longer, it's switched over there.
What about North Madison? Are there gaps in?
I've heard quite a bit about just services in general, even business services to residents in North Madison, the claim that if I have to drive 20 minutes just to get a coffee, there's no small services up there aside from the grocery store. And that's our rural business district. There may be some value in looking at that. Is there a benefit to having some type of rural village district or
Right.
something like that, where you can attract a little more economic development that's appropriate in that
Yeah, you gotta
area.
think multi-use
Um,
districts.
But again, you're limited with water.
You're also limited with business. I mean, admittedly, these people have to travel 20 minutes to get a cup of coffee or whatever. But again, the circle is, those stores are constantly, they're not growing very fast. And that area is not growing anymore, I don't believe.
I mean, there are some new businesses up there, like
There's a very popular restaurant
the garden,
in
about the garden.
the James Madison House has had
Is it?
really nice
Is it
success.
working? That's good to hear.
Really nice
That's
success.
the third restaurant that's gone through that didn't make it. It's nice to see we got one up there that's working.
Yeah, public water is one that we should put as a concern. And even this kind of ties in with the natural environment and drought. We did have Connecticut Water, the president of Connecticut Water, come and speak to the Board of Selectmen regarding previous droughts last summer and saltwater intrusion to one of their major
Aquifers.
aquifer areas over at Redditch Preserve, and where they can't use that currently, which is, even threats being made to limit the ability for folks to tie into public water.
Yeah.
Where it is available, let alone talking about expansion of water main, opportunities. So that saltwater intrusion is, I believe they're looking to design a system to treat that so they can get that aquifer back online.
Where are?
Over by Hammonasset.
That's by the Hammonasset River,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
on River Road.
Is the Hammonasset still, it's still tidal there, right?
It's brackish,
Is it?
yeah,
Yes.
so that's where they're running into issues.
There's just not a lot of water going down there.
And then we've had issues with residents in the Lyle Drive area, which is off of 79, just south of the circle by the Ryerson and Brown schools. and Legend Hill development where their wells have run dry and they've had to drill new wells. And there is concern moving forward of availability of water in these areas for residents.
I know there's also concern in town about the condition of pipes bringing water into homes. I was contacted by the Connecticut Water Authorities and
The age of pipes?
yeah, the age of the pipes, and said that we might have to pay to have our pipes all changed out. And fortunately, when the guy who redid the house I live in, redid everything, he changed the pipes, so we didn't have to go through that. But I know if we had to go through it, that's happening all up and down Boston Post Road.
Okay.
So that is definitely becoming more and more of a concern for clean water.
You know, this rural development district idea, some of this, it's a chicken and egg question. You know, if you build it, will they come? Or if you at least remove obstacles for development, whether it's residential, business, mixed use in a small area, whatever. I think that's something we need to think about. Not easy.
Well,
So
and
would that be regulatory obstacles or infrastructure obstacles or all of the above?
All of the above, be
Yeah.
my answer.
Well, it's a zoning issue because you got people who live in residential neighborhoods that don't expect to have a Dunkin' Donuts next door.
Right.
So that's what it boils down to. Now, there are businesses there, and some of those businesses doing quite well. But it's not clear how you would expand that zone without running into opposition, which in my opinion would be reasonable opposition.
you would have to be very careful. Yeah. You'd have to, I guess, identify what you're trying to attract to the area.
Right.
We have some commercial zoning out there. Though, don't we?
It's a shopping plaza
Yeah.
essentially, and across the street, there's a few,
Yeah.
by special exception,
Mhm.
daycare type use. I think as far as town facilities, we've done a facility study. I think that was a good step over the last 10 years to identify and evaluate all of the town facilities that we have. And the needs for updating those buildings kind of ties into the sustainability and resiliency, you know, what needs to be done. That includes emergency facilities, identifying, you know, our current town emergency shelter is located within a special flood hazard area. And so the town has identified one of the middle schools, Polson Middle School, to convert to that emergency shelter for the longer term and abandon the town gym here as that building. We also received state bonding money to expand our emergency operations center to downtown at the Madison
Fire station?
Yeah. The fire station to add on to that building and make that.
Well, I've heard developers are eyeing those kinds of buildings as potential commercial property and thinking, why are we doing that for the fire station in town? But
Do they go back or would they have to push back?
it's
They
within,
own a property next door.
yeah,
Next door.
The fire company does.
The fire company that's privately owned
Yes.
by the Madison Hose Company.
Right.
And so it would be the town's emergency operations within the Madison Hose building. Would be an
But the
arrangement
but the
between
fire
the town.
building, that's not a town building.
No.
Downtown.
Erin, is the facilities study available? We could take a look at it.
Sure.
That'd be great.
I don't know if it's online.
I think I looked for it and I couldn't find it, but that doesn't mean it's not there, especially with the new platform,
Which one?
the facilities study.
When was
Just-
that, when was that completed?
Was it just completed?
A year or two ago,
Yeah,
John?
recently.
And that new facilities committee, I believe, has been seated, but they have not yet met. The new elementary school is another major development. The school renewal plan, which is a consolidation of schools.
And another study was done on that.
Yeah, that's a long time in the making, and we currently have an elementary school in the regulatory approval phase now. That's been designed, set to be completed in 2025. That will include the closure of 2 other elementary schools and conversion of one of our intermediate schools. So it will eliminate our preschool, our standalone preschool here at town campus, and create 2 new pre-K through 5 schools, and then a 7th and 8th grade, and then the high school. So we're consolidating the number of buildings.
And Erin,
So
2 schools will be
does that mean,
closed.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So 2 schools will be closed, and are there plans for those?
No, that's a major,
Yeah,
that's
that's a big
something
thing.
that the town is going to have to consider over the next few years, is what will be the repurposing of those properties. If they are turned over from the Board of Education. The town campus preschool is set to be demolished, and the Ryerson Elementary School is set to be demolished. And there are no plans for the Jeffrey Elementary School at this point. And I guess just sticking on town facilities, the parks, I would just go back to, the encouragement for those master plans for the use of our parks. Moving forward.
Again, kind of combining natural and built environment. I think we're almost done with built. Covering a lot.
Okay. No, this is great stuff. So I'm scrolling back up to the top of the screen again. So taking a look at, we've talked through some housing, economic development, road, transit, transportation. Talked about town facilities, emergency facilities, a little bit about zoning. I think we recognize that some improvements need to be made there, and some of the other public infrastructure. A lot of these things we've touched on.
I think resiliency, is a big thing, looking at infrastructure as it relates to sea level rise, and, those are gonna have to be decisions over the next 10 years of how the town is looking to handle some of these roads and improvements that are being made to infrastructure. It includes stormwater as well.
And maybe using new models.
Yeah. We're a coastal community. Not a genius statement, I know, but it's.
You'd be surprised. Wait till our next meeting.
It matters.
Well, along those lines with economic development, I think you have to look at, where some tax bases, significant tax bases located currently, and what that would look like over the next 20 years.
Underwater.
And how do you address that? Or perhaps allow for opportunities for economic development elsewhere, where you can
Stay
increase.
flexible.
Great opportunity to think broadly, I think, here.
Yeah,
Not
for
just the old statement that stationarity is dead with environmental forces.
whether we like it or not. So we need to really, I think, there may be a lot of really bad ideas thrown out, but that's okay. Put forward, but better than, head in the sand and
Well, yeah, what are those
do our
tools?
job.
What are those tools in our zoning regulations to encourage things like that? You know, a lot of feedback I think that came from the visioning session was not a lot of interest in change. People love our community the way it is.
Yeah, just gonna say,
So
that's
what does-
probably the,
You know, what does that look like? You know, conserving open space while addressing needs for housing diversity or people to downsize or age in place, you know, there need to be regulations to
There's an irony here that to maintain what we all value in Madison, we need to address problems that are new. So there has to be change to maintain the values so much of why most of us really love being here. We don't have to live here, anybody. We do, so.
What did we forget, John? Anything?
Where do we stand like on accessory apartments on that debate, on that issue?
Under housing, yeah.
Yep, so we've had accessory apartment regulations since 1989 that have been as of right, actually, which is in sync with the statutory amendments made back in 2021. We do have, at the time of the town opting out of the state mandated language, we did a comparison of the differences between our zoning regulations and the state statute. I could share that table with you, and that's something to consider. You know, where you may want to either increase flexibility or where you'd like to retain some control in those regulations. For example, the size of the dwelling unit, the requirements for annual affidavits, things like that.
Parking
Can be a little
requirements.
cumbersome. So those are some changes that I would recommend, actually, as part of, and I guess my goal is after the drafting and adoption of our plan of conservation and development to then embark on a process to do a comprehensive review and rewrite of our zoning code to make sure that there's nothing in our regulations preventing us from achieving our goals or perhaps adding some tools that could help us get there. So there's some job security for you over the next few years. We did request that money
But we should
in
keep
our
that in
budget.
mind with what we're putting into the P O C D.
But that would be a
with an eye
recommendation
toward
in the plan.
future. Yes,
I
exactly.
would 100%. It's been quite some time since we've had a comprehensive review
It's
of
long
those
overdue.
regulations. Yeah.
I think we've got a good start, and it will be great to get feedback from other stakeholders. I heard interesting ideas from economic development people at the strategic planning sessions. Good. So I hope they come forward with some of those and share them with us.
And I will gather that information from the consultant, Cheryl Trent, for the strategic plan and share that information with you as well as we get it. That was the goal.
So, Aaron, so what I'd suggest is I'll share my working notes here that I took in the meeting, and then maybe you could sort of reshare that document out to the stakeholders that were identified. I'm sure you reached out to many of them already, but just as a way to remind them, and there's nothing like a number of ideas already on paper to kind of boost people's thinking. And we can hopefully get some feedback based on that.
I like it. And plan to invite them to our next August meeting if they'd like to
Yeah.
come and speak, yeah?
Nothing like an air-conditioned room in the beginning of August.
It's actually kind of stuffy here, but.
They haven't turned the air, they turned it off already.
Oh, I meant my house. You guys are invited up here.
Could be worse.
It's cooler than my house.
That's actually,
I got the blame.
the fan is really loud and so we strike a balance with either being able to hear remotely or have a breeze, so.
Right.
That's hopefully part of the geothermal upgrades to town campus in the fall is a new HVAC system.
Quieter.
So.
John Morgan, anything you'd like to add from your desk?
No, I think you guys covered a lot of the things. Good discussion.
I think we got a good start. Anyone else?
I guess the only thing we didn't talk about are services also, right? Do we, how much of that, John, do you think is worth?
Yeah, no, I think
including in this?
I think it is worth including, you know, so the things like senior services, I think, you know, parks and rec, how the town does in terms of maintaining its infrastructure as well as providing facilities. I think that's absolutely part of it.
I'm thinking even emergency services where you have, or situations with an aging demographic, you know, you get calls for falls and things like that, that are, you know, limit our resources from being able to respond to other emergency calls. And just what does that look like from a staffing or budgeting perspective? Like, are there, and even from a housing, we talked about this a little bit at the Affordable Housing Committee, where, you know, folks at our ambulance services were concerned about an increase in housing because they don't have the manpower to serve them. So, you
Which
know,
is why they do-
increasing housing supply brings needs for other
Which is why they
services
continue to
as
do
well.
fundraising too. The emergency responders, yeah.
Right, so what does that look like from their facilities, you know, needing
Erin, how
additional
about,
bays
as far
or
as
vehicles?
like town services, would that be more though more appropriate for the strategic plan?
I do think a lot of that is,
Yeah.
at least understanding that with the two demographics that we have aging and our young
Under 19?
children, those are heavy service
Yeah.
age brackets, I think, that at least to consider. So before our next one, and I'll touch base with Cheryl and get some access to feedback from survey. I believe it's closed now, the survey.
I think it's still open, actually. They're still
Well, I
encouraging
could get some, at least.
what we
current-
have, yeah.
Yeah.
It's live, in fact, it's live. So I am the P and Z rep on the strategic planning committee. So I now have access to the Google Drive as well. And I know that they are hoping to get a better response rate than they got.
How many do they have now? Last I checked, it was in the 700s.
Yeah, it was still under 1,000,
Okay,
well under 1,000. So,
okay.
but it's summer. I don't know, I suggested handing out flyers in the 4th of July parade, but it didn't happen.
Candy, that's what,
I know.
that's what won
Candy
my
did
group
happen.
over on the side of the road.
Trust me, there was candy everywhere.
John, any other next steps you want from us? For
No, I don't think so. I think we'll try again to bring some of the stakeholders to that discussion, and so we can get some more specifics of people's goals for those groups. That would be great. And
Okay.
and then just a reminder for folks, you received the sort of electronic version of the markup, and again, apologize that the formatting, particularly of some of the tables, is a little goofy. But if you want to sort of read through some of the additions we've made, we'd be happy for your feedback on that, on the overall working draft.
Sounds good.
Good.
Thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate your
Great,
time.
appreciate it. Keep doing it, guys.
Keep moving forward.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Okay,
Stay
see you
cool.
soon.
All right, so then we have a long list of pending applications for the July 20th meeting. Erin, do we need to review that?
2 public hearings.
Yeah.
That have been continued. And then, actually for School Street and 8 Meeting House may get tabled to August as they were unable to go before Historic District.
Which one?
These two.
The
For
charging
school-
stations.
yeah, the
Oh,
EV
charging
chargers.
stations, okay.
Yep, they need to go through the Historic District, so they may get pushed back and might get an extension granted for those. Longshore may or may not proceed, depending on in wetlands, meeting
Mhm,
next week.
mhm.
And then we have 2 coastal site plan applications scheduled that we're waiting for comments from Deep on. And we have 1 new receipt this evening, which is another coastal site plan application.
Mhm.
So these are all,
So they may get
I would
pushed
just,
out.
the only one we need to take an action on is 105 Circle Beach, is to motion to table that, since that is a receipt this evening.
Okay, so could I have a motion to table 23-31, 105 Circle Beach?
I'll provide a motion.
In a second,
I'll second it.
thanks. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
John Morgan, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Oh, and.
And Watrous.
Yes, so
Necker.
that was a 3-lot subdivision that was approved, and a 90-day requirement to file the Mylar on the land records. They are requesting an extension per statutes to file that Mylar on the land records. And so they are seeking action on that extension this evening as
Tonight,
well.
so could I have a motion? Unless
I'll file the
we're
motion.
good, motion to extend?
I have to
Would you like
recuse.
Yes, you would like to recuse. You can run out of the room and come right back to that if you want, but I think we're good.
This may not be a little more controversial.
A second, did we get a second?
Second.
Thanks, John Duzo. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Great. With a
Easy
recusal
enough.
from Janet. Okay. Approval of minutes, Secretary John Duzo.
Sure, for June 15th, 2023, planning and zoning commission meeting, members present were Snow, Lisa, O'Connor, Waltz, Reinhardt, Morgan, Peckinpah, and Bugda. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll provide a
Motion,
motion.
Michael. Second.
Second.
Jen, any edits, corrections, or comments?
Good to me.
Long, it looks good to me.
I was impressed.
Vote to approve, all in favor? Yeah. Unanimous, all right, thank you.
Great. On to remarks. It occurred to me, Aaron, to just encourage everyone to, during these quiet summer days, consider training, online training, where it's air conditioned, go to the library, wherever you want, senior center. And
Your
go
own
ahead
living room.
and go ahead and do that online training at
Excuse
least.
me.
Which online training?
That would be the
So the
clear.
Yukon Clear, if you haven't taken the 101 for commissioner training 101, that's a useful one. Bruce Hyde runs
Yeah.
those training sessions. They're a really good start.
Good introduction,
Um,
yeah.
You know, I think that's a great resource.
Fire, would it be possible to shoot out an email? to
Send you
effect,
that link?
If you wouldn't mind,
To
just
everybody,
the name,
sure.
just
Yeah.
so I know where to start.
That's easy enough. And then I would ask, when you take a training session, you need, because there is a requirement for the state, just report back to Michelle in our office or myself, and we just keep the tally so that we can annually report that we've met the training requirements. It is on a self-reporting basis.
if you feel you haven't had, or you don't have enough training opportunities and you're looking for something, I can send you some links for things. There are some other towns who have had, various training sessions that may not be of all that much interest, but, we've got some for flood zones. There is a requirement from the statutes, for affordable housing, and equity in that sense, so, or fair housing and affordable housing. So you do need to have access to one of those, that component, in your 4 hours of training before the end of the year. But if you're keeping track and you need help, we'll find you something. And recordings work. We can also, if we need specific topics that are of interest to you, we can bring somebody in, an expert on that, and that would count. There really are, there are guidelines, but there's no requirement that it has to be an in-person training or this or that, just the set number of hours. So we do have flexibility there. And I guess my only other question, I will be out of town for our next meeting. So I will have to be remote for that meeting, traveling to DC. So I will, my goal, so we don't, I guess logistically, sound-wise, this worked. We haven't had a trial with an applicant or looking at plans or things like that. So we can try that. I would have to have Maria here in person as the in-person staff, and I would be remote if you're comfortable with that, or if you want to
Sure.
wait till I'm here in August to do it full on with plans, and I'm here, that's.
I think you should come back then.
I don't know what's making me nervous.
I unfortunately, well, fortunately for my daughter, I have to accompany her to some training in DC for the week, which I didn't really have much of a choice, so.
No,
Thank God for Zoom, and that's.
It's great that you can join us.
I'll be zooming from a hotel room for you.
Yeah, I mean,
But
if everyone wants to try hybrid, we can,
Sure, let's do it.
especially if some of these applications are put off till
we can,
August.
and,
It looks
I
like
can.
we're looking at 28 things to
Yeah.
go through and.
Yeah, we can screen share. It's just a matter of, and if this is okay for you to see, and you're not relying so
It's much
heavily
better.
on a paper copy,
It's much better than it was, yeah.
then
Yeah, much better.
maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll plan that. Give it a shot.
Give it a go.
Aaron, there's a possibility I might not make it on the 20th. I'm coming back from East Hampton, my wife. And I don't know what the ferry schedule's gonna work out to be when we come out with Port Jeff. I plan to be here, but there's a chance we may not make it.
Okay.
Thanks for the heads
Okay,
up.
so we'll just plan ahead, which doesn't leave me too much time, but I'll be emailing you some draft resolutions and getting things together, and so if you're not hearing from me, you'll hear either from Maria
Maria.
or Michelle for RSVP.
Okay.
And we'll do it.
Good.
It's great.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
seconded by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? Adjourned at 8:12.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.